This episode of Life Accelerated is brought to you by Equisoft, a leading global provider of end-to-end cloud-based solutions with deep domain expertise in the life insurance industry. To learn more, visit equisoft.com.
AI is an opportunity of a lifetime, and I call it an opportunity of a lifetime because it's really becoming a force multiplier to our strategy. But for us at MetLife, we focus on what I call composite AI, which is the combination of the classical AI that we've been doing for years, the automation that we always have available, and we know how to do that, but also you sprinkling in all the generative AI, and most recent, the Agentic AI solutions that are coming in. So the combination of all of those things are giving us a unique opportunity, and I call it an opportunity of a lifetime to be able to service our customers and quite frankly, become a force multiplier for a strategy that we have in MetLife.
I'm Olivier Lafontaine, and this is Life Accelerated, a podcast for life insurers who want to achieve digital transformation. When we talk about digital transformation in life insurance, it's easy to focus on technology alone. But leadership, culture, and execution are just as critical. In this episode, we're joined by Bill Pappas, Executive Vice President and Head of Global Technology and Operations at MetLife. Bill brings a unique perspective, one shaped by decades in financial services and a leadership role that touches everything from data modernization to customer experience. We'll talk about MetLife's bold new strategy, the importance of rethinking infrastructure before chasing the latest tools, and why AI isn't the strategy, it's the multiplier. Let's dive in. Okay, welcome, Bill, to the show again. I know you've been here a couple of years ago, I think, so it's really great that you're taking the time to be with us again. I guess I want to know, what have you been up to since you last came on our podcast?
Thank you, Olivier. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited having the discussion with you. You're right. It's been almost a year and a half since the last time that we had the discussion. So I will say three things happening. Two of them is on the MetLife front. One of these is personally, but the first on the MetLife is we have new strategy. The last quarter, December of last year, we introduced a new strategy within MetLife, which we call it New Frontier. And that strategy, you will see that focuses on growth, returns, and all-weather performance, our ability to be able to manage growth and returns throughout the volatility that we see over the next 5 years. And it's exciting because it capitalizes on all of the competitive modes that we have developed over the last 157 years. So think about our geographies, our product, our distribution. And for us, from a technology and data perspective, it enables New Frontier and activates New Frontier as we're moving forward, either by helping the business to win in the marketplace with what we already have, or by developing new and exciting opportunities to get us through this. So new strategy grounded on that growth and returns and all weather is number one. Number two, the last year and a half, we have spent a lot more time maturing our AI framework, not only understanding, obviously, what the technology is out there, but equally important, how do you take that technology and how do you define the path to value for MetLife? So we spend a significant amount of time getting us really operationalizing AI and finding the benefits for our customers, our associates, our shareholders. And the last but not least, we talked about personally. You and I chatted about it a couple of minutes ago. I just came back from hiking Mount Kilimanjaro. So I spent almost 7 days in Tanzania with two of my daughters, being able to conquer and summit and gaining opportunities and kind of memories of a lifetime. So that's what I've been through since the last time I spoken to you.
That sounds great. Do you make a parallel between the trek to Kilimanjaro and what's required in the life insurance industry? Have you thought about this a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, not really, but I'll tell you one thing, it's just preparation. So whatever you do, one of the things that I found it fascinating, and I do like a lot of those type of extreme sports, you need to require a lot of preparation, with focus and discipline to be able to do that. And I can see that at MetLife, and the way that we are managing a company over the last 5 years required tremendous amount of preparation, focus, and execution. And I think that was definitely an area that I felt as we were preparing to summit Kilimanjaro. And the other thing is the idea of being able to shift perspective and reframe reality as the environment is changing really rapidly. So when we went to Kilimanjaro, we have a pretty good idea of what we were expecting, but things change really, really fast. So our ability to be able to shift our perspective, reframe reality, and being relevant and making sure that you do what it takes to be able to summit is something that I have seen on the business side as well. I mean, if I look at the last 5 years, I think a lot of things happened that it was on nobody's radar screen or there was not playbook. And our ability to be agile and draw on the preparations that you always do to be able to deliver what we need for the customer, it's something that I see tremendous amount of connectivity between what we did with climbing.
Great. Very exciting. Very insightful as well. So if we would like to recap a little bit your own personal journey in the industry, what other roles you had before and how you ended up with the GTO at MetLife, it would be great for our listeners that were not there in the last podcast a year and a half ago.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I joined MetLife right before the pandemic. It was in November 2019. After I spent the majority of my career with Bank of America, I spent almost 20 years with Bank of America. So I grew up within technology and operations, but across multiple different products. I grew up on the capital market side. I had an opportunity to be able to spend time on the commercial side of the house. And I finished my career with Bank of America on the consumer and wealth management side. So not only I understood the functional responsibility of technology and operations, but I was able to see how do you take those disciplines and apply them at a very different businesses across the company. So I came into MetLife and what drew me to MetLife was our strategy. And I remember speaking to then newly appointed CEO, Michelle Calaf, talking to me about MetLife's purpose, always with you building a more confident future and doing that by putting the customer at the center of everything that we do. And it sounds very simple, but if you think about what happened the last 5 years is how do you redesign and how do you build solutions to be able to meet your customer needs, which they change rapidly as we speak. So that was the attraction as I came in. I have the privilege of being able to manage close 38,000 resources across 40 different markets. And they really span from technology to infrastructure, to data and analytics, to cyber, but also operations and services. So my team has the privilege to be able to just manage the entire customer experience into our company. And that was the attraction of coming in and doing it in a completely different market. I understood the banking, this is the insurance, but as long as you put the customer at the center of everything that we do, everything that we are focusing on, it was very similar. So for us, my team has 5 key priorities to enable the business to be able to just win in the marketplace, to simplify and modernize our company. We've been around for 157 years. As you can imagine, in some cases, we have 2 or 3 of everything. So we spend a significant amount of time making sure that we're becoming more modern as we're moving forward. How do we protect the company? This is our cyber and this is our data governance teams that we have in place. And how do you do all of that at a unit cost that keeps you competitive in the marketplace, but also having a contemporary workforce and you build a culture that you attract the talent that you need to be able to do that. So exciting and fascinating opportunity within MetLife. And believe it or not, I'm here almost 6 years. Time flies when you have a lot of fun.
Yes, I guess you have a unique perspective coming in the industry relatively recently. A lot of people have been in life insurance for 20 years and more, but it's interesting to see someone coming from a banking side, having a fresh perspective on things. And you've talked a little bit about that in your last comment, but I want to double click on that a little bit. And what do you see are the biggest challenges or changes that you're seeing are affecting the life insurance industry, since now you've had a couple of years, obviously, to get your arms around the problems that we're facing?
Yeah, and I had almost 6 years, Olivier, to be honest with you. It feels like a lot more than that in a good sense because of the pace of what we have seen in the market. I'll tell you one thing. The thing that just surprised me at the beginning as I joined MetLife It's how little different the insurance industry is from the banking industry, to be honest with you. Because at the end of the day, the customer is at the center of both of them. And what the customer really needs is the same thing. They need the products. They need those products to be simple for them to use. You need to protect them, the assets that they have, and you need to be able to service them the way that they want to be serviced. But for me, what was interesting for the last 5, almost 6 years, it was 4 things that really have changed significantly. Number one, and I'm not sure if this is only insurance, but it's probably definitely within the financial services. Number one, we have seen a conversion of change that we have never seen before. And this is, for me, just thinking about from the geopolitical issues that you see across to the customer preferences that have changed significant, to proliferation of AI, to regulatory environment, to even our workforce. So for us as leaders, before we needed to do one versus the other, what we have seen the last 5 years is that conversion of change that we needed to do all of it. So how do you sequence that amount of change to make sure that your workforce and your customers understand it? It was very, very important and very new. The second thing that I have seen, we've never, as a technologies, have the options and the choices that we have today, especially for the last couple of years as AI and the emerging technology came in. So I remember I grew up on technology that you usually had 1 or 2 choices when you had to choose a platform. Right now, you have so many solutions available to you that you as a leader, not only you quickly need to understand them, but also you quickly need to figure out what is the long-term implications of those options and the choices that you need to make. And also making sure that you're not closing up any opportunities that may come up 12 months down the road. So that options and choices, it's a very interesting component from a leadership perspective to manage. The third thing I found it fascinating is the creation of new execution playbooks. So think about the last 5 years. We had to figure out how do we manage the pandemic. We had to figure out how do you manage emerging tools. You had to figure out how do you manage responsible use of AI. There was not a lot of existing playbooks, so the leaders had to develop new execution playbooks at the same time that they needed to execute. And the other thing that we find fascinating, those playbooks, they're becoming more integrated. So from a customer perspective, they're asking me for more digital, more self-service options, but they also wanted to make sure that those options, they're very secure. So how do I look at the playbook, the cyber playbook and the digital playbook, and bring them together? The customers are asking me both high-tech, but also high-touch solutions. They're telling me, give me the solutions to be able to take the transactional nature of our interactions away, but also I want you to be there when you need them most. So you have a lot of conversion of change. You have a lot of options that are coming in. You have a new creation of those playbooks that they're more interrelated now versus standalone. And the last thing, you need to be able to execute not only with speed and discipline, but being able to execute at scale to really make a difference for what you're trying to do in your business. So for me, away from all the new tools that are coming in, from a leadership perspective, those 5 things is redefining the role that the CIOs or the COOs are playing within our companies as we're moving forward.
That's great, and 100% agree. Those are the challenges that the CIOs face, and CEOs also in multiple lines of business in the financial services industry. I know you talk a lot about customer experience and CX and how important that is to MetLife and your own journey. If we were to talk about the key emerging technologies that you think have the ability to significantly enhance CX and fulfill customer expectations, what would be your answer to that?
I will say definitely AI. AI is an opportunity of a lifetime, and I call it an opportunity of a lifetime because it's really becoming a force multiplier to our strategy. But for us at MetLife, we focus on what I call composite AI, which is the combination of the classical AI that we've been doing for years, the automation that we always have available, and we know how to do that, but also you sprinkling in all the generative AI and most recent, the agentic AI solutions that are coming in. So the combination of all of those things are giving us a unique opportunity, and I call it an opportunity of a lifetime to be able to service our customers and, quite frankly, become a force multiplier for a strategy that we have in MetLife. And one of the things that was interesting for us early on, after those initial headlines that everybody thought that those solutions will be solving everything, we noticed some very specific shift in the marketplace. We quickly figured out that was not the technology capabilities that we were after per se, but it was the value. At the end of the day, the tools are kind of maturing so fast. The tools is going to work, but how do they work into your environment, especially for companies that have been around for 157 years and they have a lot of legacy? But ultimately, where is the value that those tools brings to the table? The second thing that we realized as we were thinking about and talking about AI almost a year and a half ago, it's being more realistic around the benefits. So the right sizing of the AI benefits. And that was where the combination between the maturity of the tools that are available, but also your ability to plug them into your own ecosystem. One of the things that we have done really well at MetLife, we spend significant amount of time and investment to do nothing more but getting our company to be more contemporary. Saying it another way, take away a lot of the legacy. It was an interesting article almost like 7 months ago at Wall Street from Christopher Mims that talked about across financial services, we have $1.5 trillion of tech debt. So the realization is when you have availability of new emerging tools, those tools cannot be working in isolation. They need to be plugged into our ecosystems. And until your ecosystem is contemporary enough, you're never going to be able to get all the benefits out of this. So right sizing and understanding those benefits at the same time that you don't lose sight of what is your ultimate goal with emerging tools, which is the value to the company, was very important. And then we pay close attention in terms of what is the partner ecosystem. There is so many choices and so much evolutions happening across. How do you select the right solution for the right opportunity that will ultimately help your business to move forward? So when we looked at composite AI, when we looked at all those initial headlines, we put a framework in place that it was a CEO-led. So I'm lucky enough to be part of the company that my CEO, Michel Khalaf, never saw AI as a technology opportunity. He saw AI as a business opportunity to be able to accelerate our strategy. So for us, our framework is CEO-led with federated ownership across the line of business. AI is a force multiplier to an existing strategy versus a strategy on its own, and really focusing on the ultimate value. And that value is from a customer perspective, from an associate perspective, and also from a shareholder's perspective. So it is an opportunity of a lifetime as long as you have the right framework. And the way we activate the framework is through technology, and the balance between modernizing and simplifying your infrastructure at the same time that you're understanding the emerging tools and you plug them in. Your ability to democratize data. Data is important because you can develop a lot of solutions, but you need the data to fit into those solutions. And how do you do that in a responsible way? So we talked a lot about fairness, transparency, privacy, security, performance. How do you build all those pieces into that? And then how do you make sure that you have the right workforce, that they have the skill set and the leadership ability to be able to do that? So AI is definitely an opportunity of a lifetime, but it needs to have a very measured and thoughtful way as you implement it to be able to get benefits at scale in a sustainable but also responsible way.
I like that a lot. Right size expectations for benefits, because we hear so much in conferences. You obviously do talks and conferences, and we hear everything, and it's contrary, I suppose, by speakers. And the reality in the end is how much value does it bring to the customer? How do you measure the success of those technologies? It's not by measuring the coolness of a tool. It is by, in the end, business outcomes.
And I think you nailed it. And the other thing that is interesting, I think those tools, they're actually really cool. I'm not going to lie to you. And I'm excited as a technologist because they have the opportunity. But at the same time, those tools, they need to be really kind of built into your ecosystem. So in order to get the benefit of those tools, you cannot skip the step of simplifying your infrastructure. So I think those tools have an opportunity that we have never seen before, but you still need to ensure that you have modernized and simplified your infrastructure to be able to maximize the benefits of those tools. So while a lot of the consultants may be right when they put a number there, they're assuming that you're a small, brand new company, that you don't have everything else. And the reality is, going back to the Wall Street Journal, $1.5 trillion of tech debt across financial services. So you need to balance the investment on both those aspects, simplifying and then understanding and bringing in the tools. And to your point, with the ultimate goal, it's the value to your company, to your customers, and quite frankly, in a lot of cases, to your associate. Makes it easier for your associate to be able to service our customers.
That's great. And if we segue into our next question, talking about how you fit the technology and AI into your environment, into your company, I suppose, and each insurance company is going to be a little bit different, but can you tell us a little bit about MetLife's priorities right now, specifically around projects or technologies you're looking at?
Of course. Now, just from a MetLife's priority, number one is obviously from an enterprise perspective, focusing on rolling out a new strategy. And the exciting thing about New Frontier, which is a strategy that we just unveiled in December, it's really grounded around growth, returns, and our ability to be able to bring the growth and returns. Well, we have what we call all-weather performance, which really means our ability to be able to manage the growth and the returns at any environment that we either predict or in some cases unpredictable. Just look what happened the last couple of months as well. From a function perspective, I'll go back and say for us, our priority is kind of remaining the same. I mean, we're here to enable the business. And what does that really mean? That really means to be able to develop new capabilities to win in the marketplace, but also service our customers and design those customers' journeys in such a way that the customers want being served the way they want to be served. The second thing is really big for us from a priority perspective. We kind of keep simplifying and modernizing our infrastructure, our ecosystem. We've done a significant amount of work into that, but more needed. So over the next couple of years, we're going to continue simplified when we're taking new solutions through the emerging tools and plugging them in. The third priority for us is protecting the company. I don't think there is a lot of mystery in terms of how that environment has changed. Our customers are expecting us to be able to safeguard their assets, and it's the same thing across our company. So the role that cyber is playing into that, and in some cases, our data governance, very, very important. The fourth thing for us is now that we can enable the business, you can simplify, you can protect. How do you do all of this in a unit cost that keeps you competitive in the marketplace? And making sure that you have the right workforce to be able to deliver all of that. So a couple of highlights, especially when it comes to enable the business. For us, we talked about AI. So one of the things that we are very proud is the development of the MetLife AI platform, which we call MetIQ. And MetIQ, we developed by MetLife engineers, leveraging leading foundational LLMs in that composite AI platform that is flexible enough from an architecture perspective to scale and deliver everything that we see in the marketplace through a multi-channel experience. And all of this, it's bolted into our cyber secure environment, and it's data-powered and cloud-enabled. So for us, this has been a tremendous amount of work over the last year and a half that really fuels anything that we needed to do, from being able to develop those new solutions to help and enable the businesses to win in the marketplace. So think about the outcome of this is anything gives us capabilities from generative AI to conversation AI to machine learning to document digitization to workflow automation, all of this coming in through MedIQ. The second thing that we actually spend significant amount of time in is reengineering our core processes. At the same time that we're looking at the technology architecture of the house, we're also looking at a big core processes that we are using to be able to service our customers. And we are re-engineering that with a high-tech and high-touch mindset. So those processes are claims, our service and call centers, our underwriting, our actuarials. So we have all the process owners going through and redesigning, investing to redesigning those processes and using emerging tools to be able to get us at a more contemporary environment that ultimately helps us to differentiate in the marketplace. And the last thing that, again, that comes in from enabling the business is the ability to work very closely with the business to create new products that they provide customer value. And over the last 6 months, we had a number of new products that we put in the market. One is Upwise, that we offer a personalized recommendation to help employees select and utilize the benefits when every single year they go in and they've been asked to make the selection. It's an AI-powered machine that really helps you figure out, based on your specific financial situation, what does it make sense for you to be able to choose. We introduced My Leave Navigator, which provides tailored guidance for navigating leave management for major life events, as we see across. And then we talked about embedded insurance. We talked about MetLife Accelerated, especially outside of the US, an opportunity for us to be able to embed insurance solution in some of the core processes across the financial services.
So how do you find a balance between technology and human interaction to meet these customer demands? How do you stay attuned, in other words, to what your customers want?
I mean, and this is actually one of our strengths, but also I will tell you it's one of the areas that we've been very, very deliberate. And for me, it starts with what I call unbiased listening to customer. And this is a top priority for us. I call it the commercial orientation. Every single day, you should know what your customers are telling you. And we have ways to be able to do that. We're looking at TNPS, our ability to be able to take the pulse of our customer interactions every single day. We have specific customer councils that we create across the company that we're able to bring the customer voice into our company, but also related and correlated back to our core processes. So that unbiased listening to the customer is huge. The same thing is making sure that you understand the customer environment and the trends and how much is changing. Going back through the pandemic, think about the way our customer behavior has completely changed. So understanding those trends and understand how do we use the technology as a force multiplier to meet those customer demands, it's very, very important. So unbiased listening, understanding the trends and the customer evolution, and then staying very clear on priorities, making sure that you understand that all of what we do, it needs to ground it back to the priorities, which means you need to make the life of your customers a lot easier. You need to make the life of your associates easier to be able to service your customers. It needs to have an impact. So that's how we're thinking all the time. And then we talked about high tech, high touch, the realization that technology can be incredibly helpful, especially when it comes to the transactional nature of our interactions with our customer. But at the end of the day, the customer wants us to be there when they need us the most. So that's where the high touch coming in. That's where the empathy comes into our equation as well.
Awesome. So data is a foundation for the success of all future technology implementations. So we just did at Equisoft a research study in conjunction with LIMRA, and the research had some interesting findings. For example, 78% of correspondents reported data readiness as their biggest challenge to implementing AI. 46% said they were not really ready or not at all ready to implement AI. And the two top areas that companies said they had challenges were implementing the strong data governance and two, managing data quality. So I'm curious to hear, how would that compare to your own experience at MetLife and the challenges that you're seeing in your own approach to data and your level of data readiness?
I will agree with the findings. Nothing surprising there, to be honest with you, because before the data, we never talked about democratization of data. We needed data for a point-to-point solution. We never needed data at scale to fit for purpose for very emerging tools. So I think we're evolving. But to the point that you made, some of the findings for us, we're focusing on three very specific areas. Number one, it goes back to what you said, data governance. It sounds very foundational, but when you look at the size and the scale, you need to be able to have a very, very deliberate focus on how do you manage data, and especially the data that is critical for the business and the functions to deliver every single day. So for us, under data governance, we leverage an industry-driven governance maturity index, basically a very consistent framework to be able to assess the ownership, but also to assess the quality of the data that you have across the enterprise. We spend significant amount of time making sure that we have the right tools to be able to help you improve the data quality, improve and understand lineage, and also cataloging it to be able to be easy to be able to figure out where the data resides. And then at the same time, we put in the layer of responsible use of AI. So data governance not only needs to be ensure that we manage effectively from an ownership perspective, quality, lineage, but also how do you use it and how do you use it responsible. The second thing that we spend a significant amount of time is how do you actually engineering the data. There is one thing to make sure that you understand where does your data resides and what is the quality of the data. But at the end of the day, it goes back to what we talked about. What is the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to be able to access that data and to make it available without your line of business have to come through your team. So for us, not only are we getting all the prioritized data into those modern platforms to make sure that that is available, but also reusable APIs and frameworks so people will be able to access that data that you put into those modern platforms. And then as you're moving forward, how do you design your data elements for scalability, reuse, and accessibility, which we've never had to do before? So that's the second thing. So data governance, data engineering. And the last thing I believe which will be a game changer for us is the data science, and really shifting from the reporting that we are doing from utilizing the data to providing commercial insight to your line of business and make sure that they understand and they're staying ahead, and data helps you not only empower what you already have, but really helps you figuring out what is the new solutions that really make sense for the customer that we need to be able to start designing.
I agree. And there must be a workforce skill component to this to be able to leverage that data, use the tools that will leverage the data. So how does MetLife ensure that its workforce possess those latest skills, those new skills and capabilities to meet the demands of the changing times?
I agree. I think for me, secret sauce here is the workforce, and you ensure that you have the contemporary workforce, both from a skill set perspective, but also from a leadership perspective to be able to manage all of this. So for us is, if you take a step back, I think one of the things that has been very interesting, right now we have 5 generations of our workforce, which is amazing to see. And you kind of need all of those 5 generations to be able to understand where we are, but equally important to be able to be part of what you're trying to do as you're moving forward. And not only we have 5 generations in our workforce, but most likely will be the last generation that will be managing human only. So we cannot go into an era that is human plus. So if I look at this, there is two things that we're spending significant amount of time. One is to make sure that we understand the skill sets that we need and making sure that we have the ability internally to be able to reskill at scale. And if we cannot do that, also understanding the market to figure out how do you attract the skill sets that you need for the future. But on this one, well, there is significant amount of worry around this. We've done it before, and I remember I've been around for a long time. It's not the first time that we had to reskill the workforce. Now that you need to reskill it at scale and with a very different pace. The thing that I'm not hearing a lot in the industry is not only the skill set, it's the leadership skill sets that we kind of need to be able to also embed into organizations to manage where we are today, but equally important as we're moving forward. And for me, I always talk about three things. One is critical thinking. As you go through, we talked about conversion of change. We talked about this pace. It's something like we have not seen before. You have new tools, we have options, you have new playbooks, but none of AI will be able to actually give you critical thinking. So we need to make sure our leaders have enough of that critical thinking as we're moving forward. The second thing is what I call collaboration, and this is what I call people plus. We kind of quickly become an organization that we need to collaborate, but collaboration is not only across our humans, collaboration and work within the new emerging tools that we're plugging into our system. And the last but not least, I think what's incredibly important for us is to create a culture that we are comfortable to learn, relearn, and unlearn, which is the most difficult thing. Things that made us very successful in the past, that they may not be the things that makes our fit for purpose right now. So yes, on the skills, yes, understanding the skills and being able to really kind of reskill your workforce at a pace that you need, but equally important that leadership attributes that you need to have to be able to manage the complexity of today are very, very important. And this is from a critical thinking to the people plus and a culture that you're comfortable enough to relearn and unlearn all the time. And one of the things that Michelle Calaf, our CEO, has done very effectively, made it okay that we're all learning at the same time, especially when it comes into those emerging tools. So from the CEO down to our customer advocates, this is very new. And how do you create a culture that it's okay to seek learning and it's okay not to know it yet? So we create a culture, that whole learning and unlearning, and also learning at the same time across layers of the organization. Very, very important. And that's how we are thinking through in MetLife as we're moving forward.
That is such great, unique insight. We rarely hear about the importance of bringing your leaders aboard, but that is so true. There is such an important aspect of the skills that are a little bit softer, I suppose, than hardcore technology, and managers and leaders have to embrace innovation and these new technologies to be leading their team. So that's fantastic. We're getting to the end of our podcast. So perhaps if we want to wrap this conversation, I would ask what your best piece of advice would be for an exec looking to improve the effectiveness of their company's digital transformation in the era of AI and data.
I think I will say three things. Number one is the leaders of today and tomorrow, they need to have commercial mindset. And what do I mean by that is they always need to understand what they do today fits, compare and contrast to what's out there in the market, especially as we talked about the options and the choices that you have today. You need to have that intellectual curiosity and be commercial mindset, regardless where you sit in the organization. The second thing is prioritize for impact, not for activity. One of the things I found it really hard because of so many options and the velocity of what you see from a change perspective, you need to hone in into those things that really ultimately add value to the business, and not kind of chase that shiny object to prove that the tool is working. The tool will ultimately always works, but for what reason? So how do you prioritize for impact and not activity? I think it's very important. And the last but not least is execution at scale with agility and discipline. And we talked a lot about agility and discipline before. but we've never talked about how do you do that at scale. And one of the things I found, and I think we all can attest to, you need to be able to understand what you're doing, understand the impact, and then being able to bring that value at scale. So it will be able to change the way you're servicing your customers, creating new products for the customers, or being able to change the way that our associates are really operate every single day. So those are the three things that I will provide as an advice.
Thank you very much, Bill Pappas. It was great to have you on the show. It was a great conversation. Really liked the advice and the insights. Very unique perspective as well. So very appreciated that you took the time to come here again, and looking forward for hearing from you in other conversations at InsurTech Insights or other places where you'll be presenting.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it as always, and I appreciate the questions. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bill gave us an inside look at what transformation at scale really demands: clear priorities, intentional leadership, and the discipline to modernize before you automate. One key takeaway from today's conversation is Bill's belief that success isn't just about implementing new tools. It's about aligning them to real business value. And in an era of AI and acceleration, the companies that win will be the ones who know how to prioritize, simplify, and scale with purpose. To find out more about advancing your own digital transformation, check out equisoft.com/lifeaccelerated.